Mortal Engines, Part 1, Chapter 14, The Guildhall. Catherine decided to start at the top. The day after her father left London, she sent a message up the mnemonic tube system to the Lord Mayor's office from the terminal in her father's room. And half an hour later, a reply came back from Crome's secretary. The Lord Mayor would see Miss Valentine at noon. Catherine went to her dressing room and put on her most businesslike clothes. Her narrow black trousers and her grey coat with shoulder fins. She tied back her hair with a clip made from tail lights of an ancient car, and fetched out a stylish hat with trailing ear flaps, which she had bought 6 weeks before but hadn't got round to wearing yet. She put colour on her lips and soft oblongs of rouge high on her cheekbones, and painted a little blue triangle between her eyebrows, a mock gild mark like the fashionable ladies wore. She found a notebook and a pencil, and slipped them both into one of her father's important-looking black briefcases, along with the pass he had given her on her 15th birthday, the gold pass, which allowed her access to almost every part of London. Then she studied her appearance in the mirror, imagining herself a few weeks from now going to meet the returning expedition. She would be able to tell father, "It's all right now. I understand everything. You needn't be afraid any more." At 11:45, she walked with dog to the elevator station in Quirk Circus, enjoying the looks that people gave her as she passed. "Oh, there goes Miss Catherine Valentine," she imagined them saying. "Off to see the Lord Mayor, I expect." The elevator staff all knew her face, and they smiled and said, "Good morning, Miss Catherine," and patted dog and didn't bother to look at her pass as she boarded the 11:52 for top tier. The elevator hummed upwards. She walked briskly across Paternoster Square, where dog stared thoughtfully at the wheeling pigeons and pricked up his ears at the sounds of the repair work going on inside St. Paul's. Soon she was climbing the steps of the Guildhall and being ushered into a tiny internal elevator, and at 11:12 she was shown through the circular bronze door of the Lord Mayor's private office. "Ah, Miss Valentine, you are 1 minute early." Crome glanced up at her from the far side of his huge desk, and went back to the report that he had been reading. Behind his head was a round window, with a view of St. Paul's looking wary and unreal through the thick glass, like a sunken temple seen through clear water. Sunlight shone dimly on the tarnished bronze panel of the office walls. There were no pictures, no hangings or decorations of any sort, and the floor was bare metal. Catherine shivered, feeling the cold rise up through the soles of her shoes. The Lord Mayor kept her waiting for 59 silent seconds, which seemed to stretch on forever. She was feeling thoroughly uncomfortable by the time he set down the report. He smiled, faintly, like somebody who had never seen a smile, but had read a book on how to do it. "You will be glad to hear that I have just received a coded radio signal sent from your father's expedition, shortly before he flew out of range," he said. "All is well aboard the 13th floor elevator." "Good," said Catherine, knowing that it would be the last she would hear of father until he was on his way home. Even the engineers had never been able to send radio signals more than a few hundred miles. "Was there anything else?" asked Crome. "Yes," said Catherine, and hesitated, afraid that she was going to sound foolish. Faced with Crome's cold office and still colder smile, she found herself wishing she had not put on so much makeup or worn these stiff formal clothes. But this was what she had come here for after all. She blurted out, "I want to know about that girl and why she tried to kill my father." The Lord Mayor's smile vanished. Your father has never seen fit to tell me who she is. I have no idea why she is so keen to murder him.
Do you think it is something to do with Medusa?
Chrome's gaze grew a few degrees colder. That matter does not concern you, he snapped. What has Valentine told you?
Nothing,
said Catherine, getting flustered. But I can see he's scared, and I need to know why, because... Listen to me, child, said Crome, standing up and coming round the desk at her. Thin hands gripped her shoulders. If Valentine has secrets from you, it is for good reason. There are aspects of his work that you could not begin to understand. Remember, he started out with nothing. He was a mere out-country scavenger before I took an interest in him. Do you want to see him reduced to that again? Or worse? Catherine felt as if he had slapped her. Her face burnt red with anger, but she controlled herself. Go home and wait for his return, ordered Crome. And leave grown-up matters to those who understand them. Don't speak to anyone about the girl or Medusa. Grown-up matters, thought Catherine angrily. How old do you think I am? But she bowed her head and said meekly, Yes, Lord Mayor. And, Come along, dog. And do not bring that animal to top tier again, called Crome, his voice following her into the outer office, where the secretaries turned to stare at her furious, tearful face. Riding the elevator back to Quirk Circus, she whispered in her wolf's ear, We'll show him, dog. Instead of going straight home, she called in at the Temple of Cleo on the edge of Circle Park. There, in the scented darkness, she calmed herself and tried to work out what to do next. Ever since Nicholas Quirk had been declared a god, most Londoners had stopped giving much thought to the older gods and goddesses, and so Catherine had the temple to herself. She liked Cleo, who had been her mother's goddess back in Puerto Angeles, and whose statue looked a bit like Mama too, with its kind dark eyes and patient smile. She remembered what Mama had taught her about how the poor goddess was being blown constantly backwards into the future by the storm of progress, but how she could reach back sometimes and inspire people to change the whole course of history. Looking up now at the statue's gentle face, she said, What must I do, Cleo? How can I help Father if the Lord Mayor won't tell me anything? She hadn't really expected an answer, and none came, so she said a quick prayer for Father and another for poor Tom Natsworthy, and made her offerings and left. It wasn't until she was halfway back to Cleo House that the idea struck her, a thought so unexpected that it could have been sent to her by the goddess herself. She remembered how, as she ran towards the waste chutes on the night Tom fell, she passed someone heading in the other direction. A young apprentice engineer, looking so white and shocked that she was sure he must have witnessed what happened. She hurried homeward through the sunlit park. That young engineer would have the answer. She would go back to the gut and find him. She would find out what was going on without any help from wicked old Magnus Crome.